Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. So unfortunately it does look like we are going to have to wait until after the NAWCQ before we get that new ban list, and it kind of sucks, right? Because we do need that ban list to shake things up. The game has gotten kind of stale, and there's not too much crazy stuff happening right now, aside from the Infinite Forbidden, obviously. But that's okay, because there are still cards that are worth noting for their behavior on the market. Now, even though they may not be like huge meta-relevant price spikes that are happening, there's still cards that we should make a note of for other reasons that present us with the opportunity to come out ahead in the future, and we're gonna go over some of those today. Let's get started. First up, we have Moulin Glacier, the Elemental Lord. Now this is a level 8 water sea serpent monster that requires exactly 5 water monsters in your graveyard in order to special summon it, and on special summon it can rip 2 cards from your opponent's hand. Now in the past, this card was used in the Mermail Atlantean deck. It was searchable with Atlantean Dragoons, and it was definitely a really devastating card to resolve on your opponent if you were going first. However, this card hasn't seen play in quite a few years, especially since we are in the Year of the Fire, and we have Tenpai Dragon, Snake Eye, and all of these other decks. Obviously, they're not using Moulin Glacier at all. Despite this card is currently trending. Everyone sees the fire and water cards as being sort of parallel, and now that fire has been dominating for the last little while, the assumption is that we are going to get some really strong water cards soon, and theoretically Moulin Glacier would be a great addition to any of those decks. The next core set that we have is called Rage of the Abyss, with its name sort of referencing Abyss Rising, and of course we haven't gotten a water structure deck either in quite a while. This is 100% speculative, however. People seem to be really convinced by this, but there's no concrete proof. Now price-wise, it's just the secret rare that has spiked. Right now you're looking at having to pay $20 to $25 for a single secret rare copy of Moulin Glacier, which is relatively high considering that the card hasn't been used in a long time. It used to only be a $7 to $8 card. Players are wanting to bling out their water decks if and when this card does become relevant, however, and the secret rare printing from back in Abyss Rising is the highest rarity. This card does have a couple of lower rarity reprints. It has, I believe, an ultra and then a common reprint. Those are pretty affordable at under $1 each. Honestly, I feel like Moulin Glacier's secret rares are just 100% a gamble if you are still holding on to this, because we have zero official confirmation of any new water cards, and then even if we get them, there's no guarantee that they would be meta relevant either. But if the support does come and it ends up being really good and it's able to make use of Moulin Glacier, this card definitely has the potential to reach $30 or $40 in the future. Okay, so this is one that may have been really easy to miss. It's number 40 Gimmick Puppet of Strings. So in the Infinite Forbidden, we have new Gimmick Puppet support, and it's actually really good. They're able to FTK pretty consistently, and I feel like depending on how the format shapes up with the various hand traps, I could definitely see them winning a couple of events in the future. Number 40 is a 2-of in the extra deck, but not for itself. However, it's a necessary piece because you use it to rank up into number C40, which is Gimmick Puppet of Dark Strings, which has an effect where you can destroy monsters, inflict damage to your opponent, and draw a card as well. So a very big and important piece for the FTK. Now that said, number 40, even though it's just a bridge piece, still needs to be played by the deck, so we're now starting to see all versions of the card trending on the market. The original Jump Ultra Rares are of course the highest. Those are coming in at anywhere from $20 to $30 each, and there's relatively few of them available on TCG Player. The real surprise to me, however, is with these super rares and commons. Now these used to just basically be bulk cards, but now for the super rares that are from those old tins, those are $5 each, and then even the commons from Legendary Duelist's Immortal Destiny, they're literally $2 to $3 a piece for the commons. That's a lot of free value if you can dig these up out of your bulk. I definitely think they are worth finding and setting aside to bring and try to move at your sneak peeks next weekend. Speaking of cards to bring to Sneak Peek next weekend, the next card I want to mention here is Fable Lurry. So for those of you that are paying attention to the Fiendsmith engine over in the OCG, you will know that Lurry is an absolute necessity for the engine. This is the best card to search off of Fiendsmith Tractus, the normal spell card, and Lurry is a light fiend monster that can special summon itself and be used to go into the Link 1 Fiendsmith Requiem. Now after the Infinite Forbidden, I feel like absolutely everyone is going to be using the Fiendsmith engine, and with that everyone is going to need a copy of Lurry. That said, I want to pay attention to the lower end printings of Lurry, because assuming that the card doesn't get a reprint, I definitely see those continuing to go up in price. Right now we have the Supers from Hidden Arsenal 2 coming in at $12 to $13 each, but those copies are starting to disappear gradually, while we do also have the common reprints from Hidden Arsenal Chapter 1 at around $6 to $7. If you guys want to hold out for another reprint, then sure, you can do that, but I feel like this card isn't going to get reprinted for quite a while. If you're just wanting to play, this is definitely a card that you should own. You probably should have picked it up a little while ago. Aside from that though, if you have extra copies of this card, bring them to your sneak peek at your locals, because there's a really good chance you're going to find someone who just gets lucky at sneak peek. They pull Fiendsmith cards and on the spot decide that they're actually going to use the engine, and that's a great opportunity for you to have these available to move. Alright, now this is a fun one. It's Reiki Break. So of course this isn't actually a meta relevant one at all in today's format. It's a normal trap card where you discard a card from your hand to destroy a card on the field. Nice and simple. Pretty slow and underwhelming by today's standards. However, this card actually saw a huge buyout because of its usage in various Time Wizard formats. It sees play in GOAT format, where you can discard a Thunder Dragon or a Sinister Serpent for free and just get to pop a face down monster for a ton of value, or you can pop a set back row in the end phase because Mystical Space Typhoon is still limited to 1. This card is also, I believe, used in Edison format. Now, I'm not as familiar with Edison format as I am with GOAT format, but I believe that you can use this card to pop any key combo piece without having to wait for your opponent to declare an attack, so that you can use like a Dimensional Prison or a Sakuretsu Armor. So Reiki Break can be a little bit faster and you can discard something like a Treeborn Frog. So the crazy thing is that despite this card being extremely old, this thing came out back in Pharaonic Guardian, so this is technically older than Dark Magician Girl. This card only has one holo printing, and that came in Legendary Collection Yugi's World. Now that's a set that wasn't widely produced or opened, so there's actually not a ton of the cards running around, and of course that did come out back in 2012, so this card in super rare form is literally at least 12 years old. Now that said, Super Rare Reiki Break saw one of the craziest buyouts I've seen in a long time, with the card now coming in at $35 to $40 lowest on TCG Player, which is honestly just insane to me. To be fair, a lot of Time Wizard format players just play these old formats, and a lot of them, I feel, don't mind spending that little bit of money to bling out their decks. If you randomly have these, I would definitely consider dumping them while they are so high, because I could certainly see a card like this getting a holo reprint in an OTS tournament pack very similarly to pulling the rug. Another really interesting one here, we have Treeborn Frog, but specifically we're looking at the Lost Art version. So the Lost Art cards are, in my opinion, really cool. For those of you that are unfamiliar, it started through COVID, where if you spent at least $30 on Yu-Gi-Oh product at your local OTS store, you could get a free promo card with an artwork that was never before released here in the TCG. Now, of course, the earliest ones were Monster Reborn and the Exodia limbs. Those are quite pricey. However, aside from those, Dark Magician Girl, and then a couple of other Lost Art cards, they haven't generally been too crazy price-wise. We have really interesting cards like Lumina and Nurse Dragon Maid and Magician Salvation that look really cool, but they're $1 or $2 and they don't really make it feel worth the purchase. However, Treeborn Frog is the latest one, and it's actually one of the more decent Lost Arts that we've had in a while. It's really simple, it's just a halo on its head, but the thing is that Treeborn Frog is actually a really good card in Edison format, and if you don't want to have to buy the Alti or DRO4 Ultra Treeborn Frogs, the Lost Art version is a holo alternative that's really nice. That said, Treeborn Frog looked like it was going to go the same way as a lot of the others, as it bottomed out at $8 pretty quickly. However, the card was quickly eaten up off the market, and it's now a solid $13 to $14 card. This is pretty good value because that's basically half the value back on whatever $30 of product it is that you decided to purchase. If you do want to open some packs, or if you're interested in picking these up, I definitely think that it's actually worthwhile to go to your local OTS store, see if they have these available, and try to grab some. Okay, so this is one I just want to mention briefly. It's Droll and Lockbird. This card has actually become a fairly controversial hand trap, as it stops your opponent from searching or drawing for the rest of the turn, which most decks actually do a fair amount of nowadays. But of course it's technically a neg one, so it seems sort of balanced. My friend Nigel actually told me a long time ago that formats where Droll is good are bad formats, because it means that decks are too strong, to the point that taking a neg one is actually fine, and obviously the game is very different now, but I do see the point. Anyways, Droll got a reprint in Rarity Collection 2 that has made it really affordable. It's not quite like Ash or Imperm, where they're still worth a few dollars despite the Rarity Collection reprint, but they are worth around $1 or so for the cheaper printings. Now that said, I think that this is a card that absolutely everyone should own at least a set or two of. Droll has had very accessible reprints in the past, like as structured at commons or as a rare in Tactical Masters, but in the past we've seen those printings that were easily accessible go up and become worth a few dollars over time. I know that Rarity Collection 2 wasn't the best or most widely open set, but hopefully you can still grab a set of these while they are quite cheap, because they're going to be main deck worthy going into next format, because they're very effective against the Fiendsmith engine. If you plan on playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh at all this upcoming format after the Infinite Forbidden, this card is definitely something you should own a set of, and is something that you can consider picking up multiple copies of, because it does have a lot of potential to continue going up down the road. And finally, the last card I want to talk about is the Phantom of Yubel. So this is a card that has gotten a lot of attention over the last few weeks since the release of Terminal Revenge. Now, one big question mark has been the ban list, because if the ban list were to drop within the last couple of weeks, I think a lot of players were preparing to try and jump on Yubel, assuming that Snake Eye would have gotten hit significantly. It seems now that the ban list won't be until after Nationals, however players still need to be prepared for the following format, and a lot of eyes are now on Phantom of Yubel. This card is something that can be summoned multiple times a turn by shuffling material back into the deck, and it also converts your opponent's monster effects, so it effectively lets you play through things like Nibiru or other hand traps. In fact, this card is so strong that it seems to now be run at either 2 or even 3 copies, because it's just that important, yet it's very easy to access. Now, price-wise, Phantom of Yubel was obviously expensive on release. It came out at around $80, it fell to about $50, then it went back up to around $60, and then last week I remember this card being just under the $50 mark. I was able to buy one for $47 off of TCG Player. Now, however, when I look at the card, it's back up to between $55 and $60 once again, and assuming that the ban list goes how players are expecting it to, this is a card I could easily see going back to about $70 or $80. Remember, this is one of the only valuable cards out of Terminal Revenge, as a lot of the other cards, aside from the quarter century cards, are basically all still in the single digits. Of course, it is possible that this deck gets hit too, or maybe Konami doesn't hit Snake Eye as hard as they should. But if you guys are looking to play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh next format, this is definitely a card that I would make sure that you own a set of going into the next format. Alright guys, that is all we have for today's episode. Definitely a bit of a slower time with the market right now, especially with NAWCQ right around the corner, and then obviously whenever we do get that ban list. I am super excited though for the Infinite Forbidden. We should have those reveals coming out to you guys later on in the week here, so definitely stay tuned for that. The Infinite Forbidden is definitely looking like a game-changing set, so hopefully you guys pull really well at your sneak peeks this upcoming weekend. And of course, that Exodia mat does look really nice as well. I really hope I win one of those. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch, please make sure you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button. Make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.